Okay, Aaron and I are here to go over some phlebotomy job postings that we found in the past few days. The idea is, let's get right into it. Let's start looking at some of the roles that are available, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you can structure a cover letter that's going to match up some of those skills that the role is looking for. Really what you're looking to do in that cover letter is convey who you are as an individual and make your value statement to that organization in a way that matches up with the type of person they're looking for. And we're going to help you to do that matching. So Aaron, hello.
Hello.
We'll get right into it.
Yep, excited to be here.
Okay, so here is the flyer that we sent out this past week. Hi, Janelle. Flyer that we sent out last week, and this one is, we'll start off just by taking a look at the first job posting. That's for the Community First Medical Center. If it wants to go, let's try it this way. There we go. So Community First Medical Center, again, you'll notice that a lot of these job postings, you'll see in these random kind of URLs, a lot of organizations pay a third party to be the host of the site. So it's okay if you see it that way. So let's take a look at the summary of this role. Phlebotomist is responsible for collection of blood specimens, performing lab office duties, processing lab specimens, office registering patients, accurately and completely entering all necessary data into the computer system. Remember that, that's a great skill to highlight in a cover letter. Specimen, I can't even pronounce that word. What is that? Accessioning? Answering telephone calls, processing paperwork. So Aaron, what do you think this role is, who do you think it would be good for, and what do you think it's highlighting?
Well, this is oh, is there some echo on that, or is that me?
You're okay.
Okay. So this is a full-time job too. So, when we did some research, we found some full-time, part-time roles. But this is a full-time role and it's evening. So as the student may be wanting to continue their education, but still work full-time, this may be an ideal opportunity to find an employment opportunity that will give you that flexibility so that you could still take some day classes if you're going towards a future healthcare profession, and phlebotomy is just your first step. So it would give you some good experience. The other cool thing about this one is it really ties in a lot of stuff doing with laboratory work as well. And I think that provides a better experience for the next job that you're going to go into as well. So because you're going to have exposure to a whole bunch of different types of testings and, see a whole bunch of different things that are going on. So I think it would be an ideal situation if it was conveniently located to the individual, right? Again, I think if you had to travel an hour and a half just to get there, it may not be the right fit, especially if you're trying to accommodate more classes and maybe family and other things. So when you ask me like, what kind of student would this be good for? That's kind of what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and I'm noticing here that it's saying full-time PM and night shift. So just consider that when you're applying to this role, that when they say PM and night shift, you're looking at a start time of, after 4 o'clock. It could work out really well for somebody who's providing childcare during the day and you don't have availability to work until later on when somebody else is available to watch your child. So, that's something where sometimes you can match up a job based upon some of those life requirements that you're also accommodating. So let's think a little bit about what a cover letter could look like for this. So I'm going to bring up a Word document. We're just going to put these side by side.
So right now, all we're still seeing is a PDF, Robert. We're not seeing the job description with this.
Okay, so we were just looking at the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Share screen. What do you see now?
The job description and the cover letter outline on the right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I apologize to everybody that was watching before. Here's the job description that we were just talking about before. So put them side by side, and we're going to think about three topics that we're going to highlight in a cover letter. So ideally, your cover letter, it starts off with an introductory paragraph, and then it goes into highlighting a few of your skills that line up with the role. So what we can do in a cover letter outline is help you to identify what you're going to say in each one of those paragraphs. So let's think about the first item.
Well, yeah, the first one, Robert, for me is definitely talking when it says previous phlebotomy experience and or training is required. You know, this is where I would stress and encourage a person to write about the phlebotomy lab, right? Because I know we weren't able to do clinicals this semester, but we were able to practice venipunctures, you know, all the different types of sticks, you know, on each other and peers in class. We've had a chance, I think, to do it with some of our loved ones on video. So to me, I think, especially when they're saying a training and phlebotomy experience is required, we need to do a good job of letting them know the experiences that we have. And our experiences are in an educational setting, right? We may have not have been able to do these live active in a clinical setting yet, but that doesn't mean that we don't have experience. We just have to let them know the experience that we've obtained. So if you've done over 200 draws or, you know, you've done syringe needles and butterflies and all those different types of draws, you know, those are the things that I want to highlight first off and foremost, because if we focus just on the other stuff, they may say, well, this person doesn't have experience, and they may pass you by and go on to somebody else, but you do have experience. It just happened to happen in school.
And I think one of the things that you can add on that is, you know, just highlight again, you know, your certification date. So a lot of our phlebotomy students just took the exam on Friday.
Yep.
So, you know, if and when you hear back that you have, you know, been approved to be certified, just remind the reader of that. So as you're explaining these examples of, you know, how you develop the skills, you can also say that, you know, the certifying body said that you are, you know, you are trained, you are capable, you are somebody who can do the role.
Right. And I'd even say, you know, if you were in class and working with peers and everybody that you've drew from, right, said that you had a great bedside manner and it didn't hurt at all, I might be talking in here a little bit about how I received positive feedback from my clinical instructor and from peers that supported my ability to do great phlebotomy practices or phlebotomy techniques, right? Something along those lines. Because even if I got a B in the class, that's feedback from your instructor, right? Saying that you achieved at a high level. So even if they haven't verbally said to me personally, I see that you did good work, they've acknowledged that good work by providing me a grade in the course. So that might be a way to really say and communicate that you've had enough experiences to be able to do the phlebotomy techniques very well.
Sure. And I will just, again, go back to the job description always. See how it's got these three listed? So they've got the alphabet soup there. So when you're talking about your certification date, throw in that alphabet soup. You know, one, make sure that your resume is going to say that exact thing, but then also put it in here. You know, Aaron and I are going to talk a little bit more later about, you know, navigating through some of the application algorithms that exist that go through cover letters and resumes. And this will be one of the things that we'll highlight. But again, here, one of those three letter combinations, make sure that you've got it in there.
So which test did we take? It's a National Healthcare Association?
I'm
NCA?
not positive.
I'm pretty sure we do NCA. But anyway, we'll have to follow up and find out.
Yeah. So, you know, the next thing that I'm definitely seeing in any cover letter that's dealing with this is like, you're definitely wanting to highlight your ability to communicate with patients. You know, Aaron talked a little bit about, you know, the concept of like a bedside manner. You know, for phlebotomists, it's, you know, maybe more of, you know, just a clinic room manner, whatever, in the way that you can do things such as, you know, it's effective patient communication.
Yeah.
And you want to be, you know, able to develop a rapport with them.
Yep.
And to provide, you know, clear instructions to be followed.
Yeah,
Um,
I like to call it therapeutic communication, you know, as far as the term that I use like in the skill section. And it really is just to explain the procedures and to make people feel at ease prior to, you know, having them roll up their sleeve and drawing the draw, right? Or wherever they're drawing the blood from or whatever specimen you're taking. So it's really about everybody's going to have a procedure done or have something drawn is because there's something that could possibly be wrong, right? So they're anxious, they're worried, they're scared. And as you go in there, part of our role is to make them feel comfortable, right? So say, hi, my name is Aaron. I'll be your phlebotomist today. How about that weather? It's just such a beautiful day outside. Whatever you can, you know, speak to them about, you know, and if I speak Spanish and I know their native language is Spanish, maybe I talk to them a little bit in Spanish, whatever the case may be, to help them reduce a little bit of their anxieties. And then I'm going to tell them what I'm going to do before I do it, right? So that's, I think, a very important skill to have and to communicate.
yeah, you know, and for this third item, there's a couple of times in here that the word preferred is used. And I just want to highlight it here under the requirements that it says background in medical laboratory and or knowledge in medical terminology is preferred. All of you have taken a medical terminology class. So even if you haven't had experience in a medical lab setting, you can highlight that. But this is definitely the kind of thing that you want to be able to convey, that you understand all of the terms that might be thrown around in a space, and if possible, understand, you know, what it means to know those terminologies. When they're talking about accurate, you know, specimen storage and being able to perform the correct procedure, that's what they want you to know the medical terminology for. So when you're writing a cover letter paragraph like that, you know, when we're talking about your knowledge of medical terminology, I want you to follow it up with thinking the reason of why that is important for the role. So if you're telling them that you have all of this, thread that needle all the way through for them to understand that that means that you will be able to, you know, follow the procedures the way that they need to be done, and that you understand what each one of those procedures means. That's going to create a more positive client experience, because they're going to not have to come back a second time. And it's also going to increase the efficiency of the organization, because you'll be able to help them to avoid some of those steps that they might need to take if something might have been done incorrectly. So I'm going to just write down a couple of those words here when we're talking about, you know, patient satisfaction and then just overall efficiency are some of the terms that you can use in the sentences that you're building this paragraph around.
And another way to talk about this a little bit is to, you know, on your, you could either do this in a couple of different areas. Like even on your resume, you could do a relevant coursework section where you could actually list, I wouldn't say biology 120 because I have no idea what that is. You say medical terminology, right? And it says background in medical lab. So if I've taken biology 121, which is your cellular and molecular biology for science majors, I may, you know, use that experience to talk about how I have a little bit of a background in a laboratory. It may not be your formal medical lab, but the approach is the same as far as maintaining a sanitary environment, keeping all your space clean so you don't cross-contaminate any of your materials as you're doing your laboratory experiments in that class. So there may be a way to talk about and say, you know, I may not have medical laboratory experience, but I have laboratory experience in a scientific way. And I think that may be a way to highlight this in you if you haven't actually been in a medical lab. Yeah. Right.
And, you know, before we move on to the next one, just something I want to share is that oftentimes when you're writing a cover letter, you kind of have multiple different ways that you can go about doing it. Let's say there's 6 different skills that they're asking for in the role. You can pick the 3 that most closely match your experience. And this posting's got multiple examples of that, in that if you're talking about accurately and completely entering all data necessary into a computer system, you could have been doing that in a completely different field than the medical area. But if you were well experienced in that, if you were able to enter things into databases maybe even create visualizations. You can write a whole paragraph on that. We've gotten here about like answering telephone calls and processing paperwork. If you were in an office management, environment where maybe you were acting as even like think about a receptionist, you could be talking about that in your cover letter and how the work of somebody at the front end needs to be collaborative with the person who is actually providing the service, such as the phlebotomist, and that you can then thread that needle back in again to patient satisfaction and efficiency. So you can customize your cover letter based upon your experience.
Yeah, and Robert, you can even talk about that in retail sales or food service. If you were taking orders for phone service, for food online or over the phone, that's answering phones, providing that customer service, and processing paperwork, and making sure that it's done accurately and correctly so that you have good customer and patient satisfaction. So I think that those can be highlighted in just about everybody that has done that type of work in the past, right?
Yeah. Let's take a look at the next role. So the next one, we've got a lab tech assistant, different title than phlebotomist. So when you're looking for roles, this is an example of sometimes you're using some different keywords. So let's take a look. It's with Near North. Just have to wait for the web browser to load. Okay. Aaron, can you see the?
Yep, we're seeing.
So on this one, we've got listed here the code defined it, this VHLTAF.
It just switched back to, there you go.
Yeah. So we'll scroll down and we'll end up finding the role. I believe it's, there we go, right here. So I'm going to just zoom in so we can all see what this role does. So assumes responsibility of maintaining and keeping records of lab work, keeping lab equipment in perfect running order, perform lab tests on site, and prepares other lab work for outside lab and Department of Health, functions as the clinical supervisor at supervision. This would definitely be a great step up in a career path of a medical technologist lab, conducts laboratory examination procedures, including, there's a lot of these that if you've ever done something like these in the past, it would be great to include in a cover letter, pregnancy test, glucose, hemoglobin, dipstick, rapid strep test, hemoglobin A1C, and then here, midway through, we're getting into the part that really ties into the training you've just done. Also draws blood for referral testing lab. So all of these skills that they have above are potentially transferable from a profession that you've done outside of phlebotomy. And by you getting the phlebotomist training and certification, this would enable you to move into a supervisory role, but one that they need people to be able to wear multiple hats in, that now you're able to wear one of those hats that's required in being a phlebotomist.
Yeah, and I know at a lot of our health fairs, a lot of the health science students do glucose testing for diabetes at different times in different programs. And I don't know if the phlebotomy students ever had a chance to do that. But, these are pretty simple tests. It's just a matter of learning the process and the procedure to do it. But yeah, again, the education requirements is you're a graduate of a phlebotomy program and you have a current certification in the state of Illinois, which you do have. And I know everybody has done the CPR. I think everyone's done CPR, maybe not. But make sure that if you're applying for this, that you've done your BLS provider CPR training and have that active. And I think everything else in here, as you draw up a cover letter, it's, if you haven't done some of these things, it's talking about your passion, your desire to continuously learn and to develop yourself professionally. And because of your past experiences, that you could learn these things. So it's talking about my ability to quickly learn things, right? And I could highlight that through classes that I've taken that was a new subject matter for me, that I had to very quickly, like say I took chemistry in college to go towards a nursing program. I've never taken chemistry in high school, but I came out of that course with a B. That's documenting and demonstrating your ability to quickly learn material that's going to make you successful in future jobs. And that's exactly what you would need to demonstrate to obtain and do well in this, is that I could quickly learn processes and procedures. So even if I talked about working in retail or food service, to quickly learn how to do all the nuances to your job and then be able to perform that job highlights your ability to quickly learn tasks and duties. So I think there's a way to highlight your background and skill set so that they can see that you would be a good fit for this role.
Yeah, and I would definitely, this is one of those perfect ways to use your ability to pivot this past semester and be flexible in going from being in person to online learning. And here's the thing about online learning. That's what a lot of professional development, once you move into a career path, looks like. A lot of the continuous growth that you can take advantage of is available through online webinars and trainings. And if you are able to learn in that venue, like you've conveyed that you can this past semester, you'll be able to show this employer that you're the one that can continuously take the new information that's coming into the field to either do the tests that they do better, or maybe even better, help them to include more tests, more services, so that they can increase their revenue stream. And there's a great value proposition to make to an employer, is that you're the kind of person that can come in and not just do what they do now, but do what they're going to want to do as their industry advances moving forward. So this also goes into the next skill that I think is great to highlight in this cover letter, and that's flexibility. So this role, right in its name, it's got called floater. And a lot of times when you're in a career, a position that's doing floating is, as I was talking about before, somebody who can wear multiple hats. On any given day, you might be the primary phlebotomist on staff. Any given day, you might be the manager on duty. And depending on the circumstances of current staffing levels or somebody calling in sick, you're then the person that steps right up to do it. And that kind of flexibility is what every employer is looking for right now, especially when there might be economic uncertainty, because they want to have somebody who can step up when somebody else is unable to. So when you're talking about your ability to be flexible, how do you convey that in a cover letter, Aaron?
Well, just like initially, adaptability and how you were able to adjust the semester midway through because of the circumstances and situation in coronavirus, that you were still able to complete the semester, pass all your classes, learn the material at the level that you needed to be successful on your certification exam. So that is all about adaptability and flexibility, right? And with all of us, any job that you have, there's other ways to discuss flexibility, as other duties as assigned come up and supervisors come to us and say, hey, we really like what you're doing, but yeah, guess what? We're going to have you do this too. If that's ever happened to you in any kind of role or any kind of job, you've documented and demonstrated, that you've worked outside of your given job description. And anytime that you've done that, it's a great way to highlight your flexibility and adaptability within a working environment.
Yeah. And then, for the third one that you'd be listing here, this again can be, think about it like a menu of options. You talk about here, supervision. How do you operate in an environment where maybe you're providing supervision? How do you operate in an environment where you are maintaining lab equipment and monitoring inventory supplies? If you've had any experience being the person that goes and orders replacement materials and ensures that the stock levels are maintained throughout the year, that's a great thing to potentially include as your third cover letter item.
Yeah, so, and that could have happened through retail sales or through food service, roles where you were responsible to do inventory count and make sure that the count equaled the amount on the shelves, right? And then to document whether or not there were missing items, and even a little bit of problem solving to find out why something may have been misplaced. Or because if you're supposed to have 3 widgets and you only have 2 widgets back in the back, what happened to the third one? And then you're going to problem solve, and maybe somebody put it in the wrong section, or labeled it or whatever, or knock on wood, it was stolen, but whatever the situation was, you're problem solving issues and reconciling issues between inventory count and what the inventory actually lists as. So you could talk about that and highlight that if you have had some of that inventory experience.
Okay, great. Let's take a look at the third job that we have listed here. This one, maybe we can talk a little bit about those algorithms. So we're going to go to the Rush website. So everybody's aware of Rush, pretty close to Malcolm X College. And we'll take a look at a phlebotomist position that is listed there. So a lot of times when somebody shares a job with you, by the way, this is going to come up. You're going to get the link and then the position's not going to load. It's just how a lot of these job search sites work. So on this form, I gave you a little bit of a path to follow to get to the position. So click on the University Med Center, and then the position will be listed on that page. You'll see a lot listed there.
I think in just a keyword, you could, yep.
Okay, so here we have one that's coming up. Job title, phlebotomist, department, RML, customer service. Shift, fourth shift. What time is the fourth shift typically, Aaron?
That means it's rotating. That means you're filling in first shift, second shift, third shift. So it may not be a great opportunity for someone who's going to continue their education, because your schedule could be flexible and change week by week, and you're going to fill in wherever they need you for starters. Now, so like right now it says days includes a weekend rotation. And I think that's where, so it's a daytime hours, but includes weekend rotation. So maybe once, maybe twice a month, you're going to work a Saturday.
What I will share though is when you're doing a floating position or you're doing one that rotates around to different shifts, there's a really good positive to it. And that's that you get to meet everybody. So when you're starting in a new career and you have the opportunity to meet as many people as possible, that's going to really help your ability to help establish a network, find mentors, and those mentors often also act as advocates for you so that they can help you to know what you might need to do better and give you a heads up when a new opportunity might present itself that's either a step up in your career or that helps you to settle into the shift that you feel is the one that's going to work best for your schedule.
Yeah. So this one, as we look at it and we talk about the algorithm, we know that Rush uses a computer system to scan your resume for keywords prior to putting you into a pile that needs to have a person review. So as I'm looking at the first, the position responsibilities, and we're looking at those first two bullet points, right? I'm seeing the word venipuncture. I'm seeing the word working with adults, geriatrics. I'm seeing doing skin punctures on my little box with all my pictures are in the way, neonates. So, these are words that I want to make sure in anywhere I can. So I may not put butterfly sticks, right? I may be putting venipuncture as my keyword in my skill section. So therefore my resume will get pulled into this, because I don't see anywhere on this entire description where it says butterfly or syringe needle or what's the other one? Butterfly, syringe, straight needle, right? So they're just using the term venipuncture. So I'm going to make sure the word venipuncture is the word that I'm going to use all over as I can. If I can add the word adult and geriatric, if I've done it with older people or done it with younger folks, I'm going to use the word neonates, right?
So Aaron, let's take a look at this line, because this kind of thing oftentimes frustrates recent graduates.
Yeah.
Now it says, high school graduate or equivalent required to go. Okay, great. I've got more than that. I've just completed my certificate. And then the second line comes up that says a minimum of 2 years of phlebotomy experience in a hospital setting preferred. Okay, I don't have that. I just completed my phlebotomy cert. What do I say in a cover letter that helps alleviate this being a preference, because I can showcase, essentially alternative validation of my skills?
Again, this is preferred. So I have to take this, a little bit with a grain of salt, because I understand that I'm going to put everything together and put my best foot forward for this opportunity. If by chance I don't get selected, I may just understand that I'm not the right fit for this role right now, right? But I'm still going to apply, and I'm still going to put my hat in the ring because it's saying preferred. So that, this is a Christmas wish list, and nobody gets everything they want for Christmas. So if I have 3/4 of this or 2/3 of what they have listed over here, I'm putting my hat in the ring. But I'm going to do the best job possible to talk about my experience that I have, kind of like we did in the first job description that we talked about, Robert, where I'm going to talk about doing this in my laboratory with my peers. I'm going to stress that I've received positive feedback from clinical supervision and from my peers that I've drawn, that I've done venipunctures with. So I'm going to use their terms. And I'm going to, again, put the whole thing forward and put my best foot out there. And if I don't get the opportunity, I may just understand that somebody with maybe 2 years of phlebotomy experience got this role, and they took somebody who just had a little bit more experience than me. That just means I'm going to attack other jobs, but I'm still going to always keep Rush on my search every week. And every time I see a phlebotomist job, I'm going to constantly put another application in, as long as it says preferred. Right?
And here's where the very next line goes away from preferred, and it says a must-have. And must-have phlebotomy experience with adults and pediatrics. Okay, so I am somebody who, let's say that you're somebody who's worked extensively with youth. And, just further down here on the list is excellent interpersonal and communication skills. If you have experience working with both youth and adults in any setting, that by itself can be a cover letter outline paragraph, where you aren't necessarily talking about doing the role, but you're talking about being exceedingly good at talking to the audience that they serve.
Yep.
And you can, I'm going to have that be the first one here, and that can just be know the audience.
I tell students all the time, it's not everybody can talk to a 4-year-old, right? It takes a certain person and a certain personality that can connect and relate and be able to speak their language and make them feel comfortable. So whether you've done this as a babysitter or whether you've done this in a child development arena, or even talking with older people. Some people can't talk to the geriatric and the nursing home population, right? Just because they're uncomfortable and they don't know what to say or how to say things. So if you're comfortable with all these different types of people and you've had some experience, then you want to add that in there. This position is tough when it says the must-have experience with the pediatrics, because not a lot of our phlebotomy students get a chance to do like the heel sticks that they do with infants while going through clinicals, or obviously they didn't practice with them with each other in the lab. So the best thing we can do is say that, talk about how these are my experience working with kids. I'm very comfortable and love working with kids on all ways, all types. And again, just put our best foot forward and hope that we get an interview and have a conversation with them about, to further the discussion about my experiences with people.
And think about it again. You're making your value statement, and if your value statement is the audience really well, have the next paragraph tie right into another one of the key skills that these roles are looking for, and that's patient satisfaction. With the idea that, the first step in order to being able to, provide good treatment for a child and then have their guardian feel that, you've provided good treatment as well, is having them feel comfortable and having them listen to the instructions and, having them, not be afraid. I know for a fact that when I had blood drawn once that my arm was too tight, and I still have a scar to this day from it. And, being able to help, a child to understand how to avoid that is going to go such a long way for patient satisfaction. So your entire cover letter can kind of be around that as your value statement. And you'll just weave in from knowing the audience to patient satisfaction. And in this one, when we're thinking about, a third and final cover letter paragraph item, what do you think we could close this out with, Aaron?
I love to highlight, there's so many different things, right? You can talk about independent judgment, working some, all that other stuff. But I love to promote teamwork by working together with supervisors and peers. And again, this is something that you can highlight because of this experience this semester, as you and your peers had to collaborate and work together so that you can all be successful through this program. Because if it wasn't for your peers, you wouldn't have been able to do the draws that you needed to be supervised, or to be not supervised, to be certified. So I would highlight, because, and I know that in your class you had a diverse group of people that you worked with as well, right? So that's something that I would really, really highlight as far as an experience, and how I was able to work with a diverse set of peers and supervisors to develop the phlebotomy skills in the Malcolm X phlebotomy lab, et cetera, right? And I think that might be something that would be a really good third paragraph or another paragraph to highlight.
Sure, great. So we took a look at 3 jobs today. Aaron and I are both available to chat outside of this. And I just want to go back to the flyer that got sent out. It does include Aaron's virtual meeting room. He's available Monday through Thursday from 9 to noon, and then again from 1 to 3 p.m. The idea of stop in and he'll actually sit down with you, go over the position, and just as we did here with some cover letter outlines, get you something to get you started. Let's avoid that writer's block when it comes to job applications, and let's tell that story in the way that we know you can, that's going to make those employers feel that you would be a unique addition to their team, that they would just have to interview, that I just need to know more about this person. And that's where writing a really well thought out cover letter is going to help get you that opportunity.
Yeah. And Rob, I just want to add to that. Those are my hours for my virtual office hours. So if you come in during that time, we can get interrupted with other students as people just kind of pop in and drop over. That said, will also schedule individual Zoom appointments with students outside of these hours. So sometimes I could do it between noon and 1 o'clock. I'm an early bird, so I've done 8 to 9 in the morning. And if the afternoon is good, I could do 3 to 5 as well, to do some individual things. So if those hours don't work, please email me. My email's on there as well. So that way we can arrange a time that will work conveniently for the two of us. And, I'll even go a little later in the evenings and stuff like that, just, to help support, if that's not going to work during these times. So we just want to make sure that we're available for you guys.
Okay. So that concludes the session. We really look forward to working with you all as you start to, move your career search forward, and we'll be doing another one of these sessions in the coming weeks. So please take care.
Thank you, everyone.